really glad Scott gave a bunch of you a lot of candy before we got started, got you all hyped up, and then left the stage. That was nice of him to do for me. My name's Owen. I did the game last week. I've been here quite a bit. I think most of you know who I am. And tonight we get to kick off a new series, and it's called Names. And so that graphic tells you a little bit about what it is. But my name is Owen. My last name is Riley. That's how you guys identify me. Oh, who's that kind of goofy-looking guy that walks around here that isn't a leader, and he supposedly goes to Greencastle, but we only see him at Chambersburg? That's Owen, right? We know that Carter and Cole play the drums and the guitar, right? You probably hear your parents talk about, oh, I saw Scott Eckenrode today, and your mom's like, oh, Eckenrode, isn't Carter and Cole his kids? Is that the Eckenrode we're talking about? Right? So we use our names to identify ourselves, to identify each other. We know snakes don't have legs and they slither around because that's what snakes do. So we can point at something and say, I know what that is because of its name. And God has many names. We just call him God. We call Jesus Jesus. But in the Hebrew times, they had several different names for God. They had names that they didn't say; they only wrote them. They had names that they would speak in regular conversation. They had names for him that they would use in church. And so we're going to talk about three names in this series. We're going to talk about the name that means provider, the name that means shepherd, and the name that means healer. And those are just some of God's names. And what God's names do is they describe part of his character. They describe part of who he is and what he does for us. So tonight we're going to talk about how he is our provider and what that means for us. I also want to say, I should have said this at the beginning, but I get to work at Greencastle. So I get to do this with our youth group at Greencastle, and we meet on Sunday nights. And so if you guys want to come check it out, if you're curious about what our youth group looks like, you just want more time, or you want to meet new people and make new friends, you're always welcome to join us on Sunday nights. I'm not trying to steal you from Chambersburg. This is where your friends are. This is where your families probably come. But I'm just throwing the invitation out there. If you want to show up and hassle me because you see me here and then I get to see you at Greencastle, you're more than welcome to. So we're going to jump in. I do want to ask a question. Have you guys ever needed something? I'm not talking about, oh, my jeans have a little hole and then I need new jeans. Or, oh, I need a new pair of shoes because I've had these ones for a long time. I'm talking about really needed something, really been in a pinch. Maybe your parents left you at the grocery store. Has anybody been left at the grocery store before? There's just too many hands being raised. I never got left. We always left my brother places, though. We would leave him at Taco Bell or at the grocery store. We'd get home, and where's Colton at? Well, he's not in the car. He's at the grocery store. Somebody's got to go get him. And so if you've been left, right, or something like that, some serious situation, if you don't get help, the world's going to end. Right? There's no way out of it. You don't know how to walk home. You don't know the directions. You can't drive yourself because you don't have a car because your parents took it. Right? That's a scary situation. And when I was in sixth grade, our school was a little different, it was small, and so when you finished fifth grade, you went to the high school building. So sixth through 12th grade was in the high school, and so that was really exciting because you're a little sixth grader and you get to go hang out with high schoolers. We also got to join the middle school band, and so in fifth grade we just had music class. We didn't have a band, and so all of my friends were joining bands. So I said I'm going to join band, and so they had this little fair where you could go pick your instrument out that you were going to play in band class. So I wanted to play the trumpet, which Scott wouldn't have let me be on the worship team if I did that. And my mom said, no, you can't play the trumpet. You're not going to walk around the house blasting a trumpet all the time. And so I picked the next best thing, which was the trombone. And so I got my trombone halfway through the summer, and I just walked around through the house, just burp, 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 burp. I didn't know how to play it. I just made noise. And so the school year rolled around, and I'm in band class. I'm learning how to play the trombone. And band class was a really easy class. As long as you showed up and you didn't disrupt the class and you tried to learn your instrument, you got an A. There were no tests. And then during the school year, we had a Christmas concert and we had a spring concert. And if you showed up to those and you didn't ruin the concert, you got an A on that. And that was like your midterm and your final exam. So it was really hard to fail band class. There was one requirement. At the concerts, we had to wear, nicer clothes. So the Christmas concert comes around and our band teacher says, guys, you have to wear black pants, a white dress shirt, and a red tie because it's Christmas. If you don't wear black pants and a white dress shirt and a red tie, you will not be allowed to play and you will get a 0. Okay, that's easy enough to do. So I'm a big sixth grader now, so I'm going to remember that I need to wear my red tie in the other clothes. And I'm not going to tell my parents because I'm responsible. I'm in sixth grade. I can remember these things. So the night of the concert rolls around, and we show up. We had to leave our house about 5:30 to be there at 6. We lived a half hour from school. And so I'm in the music room. I'm getting my sheet music. I'm getting my trombone. And my friend Garrett walks in, and Garrett played trombone with me. And he takes his coat off. He says, "Oh, and where's your tie at?" And I said, "What tie?" I looked at him, and he's wearing a red tie. And I remembered, oh no, I'm supposed to be wearing a red tie. Well, the concert started at 6:30, so I didn't have time to tell my mom so that we could go home and get the tie. So I'm panicking. The easiest thing in the world to do, put a tie on. I couldn't remember to do that. So now I'm going to get a 0 because I'm going to have to sit out of the concert. My grandparents were coming into town to see the concert. My aunt and uncle were coming to see the concert. It was this whole ordeal, and I wasn't going to get to play because I forgot my tie. And I remember feeling so hopeless. This is the biggest disaster in the world. And it's silly now, but think of that. How many situations have you guys come across that it feels like the end of the world, that there's no way that this is going to work out? There's no solution. You just throw your hands up and you almost want to give up, right? Most of the time, it ends up working out. It ends up that it wasn't that big of a deal, and you feel kind of funny for freaking out over something so small. But imagine that feeling. Go back to that time, whatever it was, where you felt helpless, you felt scared, you just had no idea what to do. To be serious, to not talk about forgetting a tie, how many times have we had to rely on God for something and we just kind of turn and run the other way? We think there's no way he could actually help me, there's nobody that could help me. So I don't know what to do, I'm just going to give up. How many times have you come across a situation that's probably much more serious than forgetting a tie? Maybe you switch schools and you're having a hard time making friends. Maybe one of your parents lost a job and it's really scary. You know your parents are stressed out and they can't figure things out. And it's taken a long time, and so you guys are praying. Maybe someone you know in your family or a friend got really sick, right? And you're just praying and praying and praying, but the whole time that you're praying over the situation, you're in the back of your mind, you're kind of like, you know what? I don't know that God's going to do anything here. I don't know that this situation's going to work out. And I have so many of those times that I've been praying, Lord, I really need your help. I really need you to come through. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, he's actually not going to do anything. So when you guys feel tested, when you feel overwhelmed by something, how do you learn to trust the Lord in that? How do you learn to trust that God's actually hearing what you're saying and that he's actually going to come through with that? Thankfully, we have a lot of stories in the Bible about this. People that have gone through situations like that. There's a guy named Abraham who had a son named Isaac, and for most of his life, he was unable to have a son. His wife had some issues, and they could not have a child. And finally, when they're really old, God gives them a son, and they name him Isaac. Well, then God tells Abraham, hey, I want you to sacrifice Isaac for me, your only son. I want you to sacrifice him for me. So I'm going to read the first couple verses of this story, and then I'll give you the spark notes, and then we'll see what happens. So in Genesis 22, if you guys could put that up on the screen for me. There it is. It says, sometime later, God tested Abraham's faith. Abraham, God called. Yes, he replied, here I am. Take your son, your only son, yes, Isaac, whom you love so much, and go to the land of Moriah. Go and sacrifice him as a burnt offering on one of the mountains which I will show you. So first, imagine you're just going about your day, and then you hear God's voice just calling out to you out of nowhere, right? Abraham. That would be scary to begin with. And then he tells you, I want you to sacrifice your son for me at some place that I'll tell you about when you get there. Start walking. Right? Could you imagine that? Could you imagine being Isaac? He was probably about your guys' age. So imagine your dad comes and gets you and says, hey, we're taking a hike. I'll tell you what's going to happen when we get there. Carry this bundle of sticks for me. So Abraham and a couple servants and Isaac load up a donkey, and they just start walking. They walk for 3 days. And Abraham tells Isaac, we're going to go make a sacrifice on a mountain. And Isaac's like, okay, we don't have any animals to sacrifice. Can you imagine that? You're with your dad, you're walking, probably tired of walking. You're like, hey, Dad, you said we're making a sacrifice. What are we sacrificing? You imagine getting a little nervous, kind of wondering what's going on. And your dad Abraham, all he said to Isaac was, the Lord's going to provide a lamb. The Lord is going to provide something. So they continue to walk, and they finally get to this place, and God says, this is where I want you to sacrifice. Go on up. And so Abraham tells the servants to stay with the donkey. Isaac picks up the sticks. Abraham takes a knife and a torch, some way to carry fire, and they walk up the mountain. And Abraham builds the altar, and he ties up Isaac, and he puts him on the altar. Imagine that feeling. Imagine being Abraham. This is your only son who you waited so long to finally have a son. And you're putting him on an altar, and you're going to have to sacrifice him. Well, just as Abraham is about to sacrifice Isaac, an angel of the Lord calls out and tells him to stop. And that is the next passage that we're going to read here, just to kind of finish this story. And this is in Genesis 22, verse 12. Perfect. It says, don't lay a hand on the boy, the angel said. Do not hurt him in any way, for now I know that you truly fear God. You have not withheld from me even your son, your only son. Then Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught by its horns in a thicket. So he took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering in place of his son. Abraham named the place Yahweh Yireh. To this place, people still use that name as a proverb. On the mountain of the Lord, it will be provided. And so that's our first name of this series, is Jehovah Jireh, is how we would say it nowadays. Okay, God is a provider. And so Abraham is about to kill Isaac, and he stopped. Another person in thin air is yelling at him to get him to stop, and he stops, and because he trusted God, the Lord provides a ram for him to sacrifice. And the question that comes out for me here when I read that story is, how often do we get to that point with trusting the Lord? How often do we get to the point of no return? Right? Imagine Abraham like this, ready to go, and he stopped. Do we ever get that far trusting God? Do you guys ever get that far, or do you kind of just say, I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to wait. I know that if I was in the tent when God told me to start walking for 3 days and then sacrifice my son, I would sit there and say, I'm going to pray about that a little more. God, I'm going to just kind of think this one over. You give me a couple days, and we'll figure this out. Right? I don't think I would even start walking. I know that's probably true for a lot of us in here. That's a scary thing, to trust God with the only son you have. So how do you learn to trust God like Abraham? Why do you trust God? What's the point? Right? Is he going to actually come through like he did for Abraham? Will he do that for us? Well, Paul says in Philippians 4, he says this, the same God who takes care of me, of Paul, will supply all of your needs from his glorious riches, which have been given to us in Christ Jesus. So Paul's writing a letter to a church that he planted. And in this church, they're giving. They're giving money, they're giving clothes, they're giving food to support all of his other churches. Okay, and so these people, probably some of them have money, but some of them are probably really poor. And he's telling them, hey, listen, you don't have to worry, because the God that's taking care of me, the God that's taking care of these other churches, is going to do the same thing for you. Okay, you don't have to fear. He has all of the resources imaginable. We don't have to worry about anything. Okay, so God's got all the resources imaginable. He took care of Abraham, he took care of Paul. Well, how do we get those resources? How do we ask him, right? What do we do when we're in a hard situation? James tells us exactly what to do. He says, what is causing the quarrels and fights among you? Don't they come from the evil desires at war within you? You want what you don't have, so you scheme and kill to get it. You're jealous of what others have, but you can't get it, so you fight and wage war to take it away from them. Yet you don't have what you want because you don't ask God for it. And even when you ask, you don't get it because your motives are all wrong. You want only what will give you pleasure. Well, that seems fairly self-explanatory, right? You don't have because you don't ask. That's what James is saying. These people are fighting and coveting and being angry with one another because he's got something that I want, or she's got something that I want, right? To put it in the places we live, right? That person's got all the friends. I don't have any friends. I'm lonely. Why do they get friends and I don't? Why are those people happy and I'm sad? It's hard to get out of bed in the morning. Why am I anxious all the time and those people just kind of float through life? James is saying you don't have because you don't ask. You don't ask God to provide for you the friends you need or the comfort or the peace that you need, right? Well, when we come into a problem, when we come across a circumstance that's really hard, our first reaction is to fix it, right? When I come across something, oh man, we're in a tight spot. We had the budget's not looking great this month, right? The first thing I'm going to do, okay, can I find another job? Can I work some more hours? Can I do something to take care of this? Can I sell something so that I can have the stuff I want to buy this month, right? Or, oh, I don't have any friends, right? Oh, this person probably isn't the best influence, but they give me attention. They make me feel wanted. So whether they're a good influence or a bad influence, I'm just going to go hang out with them because at least they make me feel like they want me around. And when we're feeling down, like we're feeling depressed or we're feeling anxious, we turn to unhealthy habits, right? We make terrible choices that might feel good in the moment, but it doesn't make the situation any better actually. Because we're trying to fix it ourselves. We're just digging deeper into whatever situation we're in. James is saying all you have to do is ask God. Okay, and you say, well, Owen, it said that we didn't have good motives. It says that when we ask, we don't have good motives. That's why we don't get the things we're asking for. And that's true. James says that. So what does it mean to have the right motives? How do we have the right motives when we're asking God to provide something for us? All he's saying is that we can't treat God like a vending machine. Right? He says that you ask God just so you can have the things you desire, so that you can have your own pleasure. Right? So God isn't up there waiting for you to ask for a new Lamborghini to drive to school because your Toyota Camry's not good enough. Right? He's not up there, waiting to give you a pair of Jordans because your Reeboks aren't cool enough. Right? We can't just treat God like, hey, here's my dollar. Go ahead, take care of me for right now. I need this thing. I'll be back in a week with another thing I need. Right? He's not a genie that we get to just call about and say, hey, I've got 3 wishes for today, and then I'll be back tomorrow to get my next 3 wishes. What James is saying is that God is our friend, God is our Father, and He wants to provide for us out of that relationship. Because when we have a relationship with Jesus, we become more like Him. It's the same way that do you guys have SAT tests here? Like where you sit in a room and you have to be quiet for 12 hours and like fill in little bubbles? So we had those too when I was in high school and in middle school. So imagine you're sitting in that room and you don't have a pencil. Thankfully, your best friend's sitting next to you, so you can lean over and say, "Hey, Will, can I have a pencil?" And Will gives you a pencil because you guys are friends, right? In the same way that if he needs a pencil, you give him a pencil, right? Because you care about each other, you're friends with each other. That's what God wants with us. Is He wants to have that relationship with us, so that we can go to Him and say, Lord, I am in need right now. I need friends. I need peace. I need comfort. Maybe stuff's going on at home and I don't know what to do with that. And because you have a relationship with Him, because He's your Father and you're in that friendship with Him, He's so quick to dump out the Bible calls the storehouses of heaven, infinite things for you that He is ready to pour out and provide for you. You remember my tie, right? When I stopped telling the story, I was in the music room panicking because I was going to get a 0. Well, what I didn't know was that my dad left work early to make it up in time for the concert. And so I go out and I've got to tell my mom, I forgot my tie. I don't know what I'm going to do. And there's my dad with my mom. And he comes up to me and he hands me my red tie. So everything was fine. I didn't need to freak out. I didn't need to panic because my dad knew that I needed my tie and he provided it for me. He brought it for me so that I could play in the concert. That is exactly what our Heavenly Father wants to be for us. That is why His name, one of His names, is Jehovah Jireh, the God who provides. He knows everything you need before you ask Him. He's just waiting for you to say, hey, you are my best friend. You are my Father who wants to provide endlessly for me, who wants to care for me. I need you to come through. I need you to give me friends. I need you to give me peace right now. And because you have that relationship with him, because you know him as your father and as your friend, he's ready to do that and he's quick to do that. And it's hard. It's hard to sit and be in a horrible place and go, you know what? God, I've just got to trust you. I've just got to trust you. It's uncomfortable. It feels like it takes forever. But when he comes through, because that's what he does, it's so much easier the next time to trust him. It's so much easier to call on him. You stop trying to fix things yourself and you say, you know what, Lord? Yeah, I believe you because you did it for me. And then your friends, like we talked about friends last series, right? And being a good friend and being a good mentor for them. When they're watching you trust God and when they're hearing about the things that, hey, you know what? I had to really ask God for help in this. I had to really ask God to come through. And I had to really trust him in this situation. Then they get to go, oh man, if God did that for my friend, he'll probably do that for me too. That's why I'm up here telling this to you guys. Excuse me. God has provided for me so many times. And so it's easy to want to share that with you guys. It's easy to want that for you because I get to say, look at all of the things in my life that God's taken care of. Just like my dad with the tie. And so as we get ready to move into our time of small group and discussion and stuff, I want you guys to think about the times that you have been provided for, the times that God has come through for you, or maybe the times that you've seen God come through for your friends or your family. And then I want you to think about what you need to ask him help in. Maybe it's something little. Maybe it's just, you've got a big test coming up and you're really nervous about it. Maybe it's something huge, like there's some stuff going on in your family that you don't know what to do with, that it's really difficult, and there's nothing you can do to get out of the situation, and you just need peace about it. You just need comfort from the Lord to deal with what's going on. I want you to think about those things because when we get to talk about them, we get to share. Maybe you've got this going on, and someone else says, "Oh man, I just went through that, and the Lord was really good, and the Lord helped me with this, and this was a Bible verse I read." Because that's how we get better. That's how we learn to trust God together. Is that we share our stories, we share what the Lord is doing with us. And so I'm going to pray, and then we're going to go into our small group time. Everybody's rooms are the same as they were last week. I can't recite them like Scott can, where you guys are going, but wherever you went last week, go there again, okay? So I'm going to pray, and then you guys will be dismissed, all right? Jesus, we thank you so much for the opportunity to get together and to worship and to spend time with our friends and just open your word and see what you have for us, Lord. I pray over these students that whatever they're going through, Lord, we know that you see them. Lord, I pray that they feel that they believe that you see them, you see what they're going through, you see what their needs are, Father, and that you'll put somebody in their life, or you'll show them in their hearts that they need to just turn it over to you, that they need to just ask you for help, because you're the only one that can get them out of their situation, that can provide them what they need, God. Father, I know you as provider, and I just pray that these students know you as that as well. Father, move in our hearts as needed tonight. Bless the rest of our evening together. Let us just have fun with one another. We love you so much, and we ask all these things in your name. Amen.